Article from Wikipedia. India, Geography and Biodiversity, Episode 3 by Rocky Kamboj.
Hello friends, Rocky Kamboj this side from Wikispeaks, your own YouTube channel regarding the articles on Wikipedia, the largest encyclopedia on planet Earth. So today in episode 3, I shall be covering the geography of India and the biodiversity. Let's start. India accounts for the bulk of the Indian subcontinent, lying atop the Indian tectonic plate, a part of the Indo-Australian plate. India's defining geological processes began 75 million years ago when the Indian plate, then part of the southern supercontinent Gondwana, began a northeastward drift caused by seafloor spreading to its southwest and later south and southeast. Simultaneously, the vast Tethyan oceanic crust to its northeast began to subduct under the Eurasian plate. These dual processes, driven by convection in the Earth's mantle, both created the Indian Ocean and caused the Indian continental crust eventually to underthrust Eurasia and to uplift the Himalayas. Immediately south of the emerging Himalayas, plate movement created a vast crescent-shaped trough that rapidly filled with river-borne sediment and now constitutes the Indo-Gangetic Plain. The original Indian plate makes its first appearance above the sediment in the ancient Aravalli Range, which extends from the Delhi Ridge in a southwesterly direction. To the west lies the Thar Desert, the eastern spread of which is checked by the Aravallis. The remaining Indian plate survives as peninsular India, the oldest and geological most stable part of India. It extends as far north as the Satpura and Vindhya ranges in central India. These parallel chains run from the Arabian Sea coast in Gujarat in the west to the coal-rich Chota Nagpur Plateau in Jharkhand in the east. To the south, the remaining peninsular landmass, the Deccan Plateau, is flanked on the west and east by coastal ranges known as the Western and Eastern Ghats. The plateau contains the country's oldest rock formations, some over 1 billion years old. Constituted in such fashion, India lies to the north of the equator between 6 degrees 44 minutes and 35 degrees 30 minutes north latitude and 68 degrees 7 minutes and 97 degrees 25 minutes east longitude. India's coastline measures 7,517 kilometers, that is 4,700 miles in length. Of this distance, 5,423 kilometers, that is 3,400 miles, belong to peninsular India, and 2,094 kilometers, that is 1,300 miles, to the Andaman Nicobar and Lakshadweep island chains. According to the Indian Naval Hydrographic charts, the mainland coastline consists of the following: 43% sandy beaches, 11% rocky shores, including cliffs, and 46% mud flats or marshy shores. Major Himalayan origin rivers that substantially flow through India's include the Ganges and the Brahmaputra, both of which drain into the Bay of Bengal. Important tributaries of the Ganges include the Yamuna and the Kosi, the latter's extremely low gradient caused by long-term slit deposition liable to severe floods and coast changes. Major peninsular rivers whose steeper gradients prevent their waters from flooding include the Godavari, the Mahanadi, the Kaveri, and the Krishna, which also drain into the Bay of Bengal, and the Narmada and the Tapti, which drain into the Arabian Sea. Coastal features include the marshy run of Kutch of western India and the alluvial Sundarbans delta of eastern India. The latter is shared with Bangladesh. India has two archipelagos, the Lakshadweep coral atolls off India's southern western coast, and the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, a volcanic chain in the Andaman Sea. Indian climate is strongly influenced by the Himalayas and the Thar Desert, both of which drive the economically and culturally pivotal summer and winter monsoons. The Himalayas prevent cold Central Asian katabatic winds from blowing in, keeping the bulk of the Indian subcontinent warmer than most locations at similar latitudes. The Thar Desert plays a crucial role in attracting the moisture laden southwest summer monsoon winds that between June and October provide the majority of India's rainfall. Four major climatic groupings predominate in India: tropical wet, tropical dry, subtropical humid, and montane. Temperatures in India have risen by 0.7 degrees Celsius, that is 1.3 degree Fahrenheit, between 1901 and 2018. Climate change in India is often thought to be the cause. The retreat of Himalayan glaciers has adversely affected the flow rate of the major Himalayan rivers, including the Ganges and the Brahmaputra. According to some current projections, the number and severity of droughts in India will have markedly increased by the end of the present century. Now, coming to the biodiversity of India. India is a mega diverse country, a term employed for 17 countries which display high biological diversity and contain many species exclusively indigenous or endemic to them. India is a habitat for 8.6% of all mammal species, 13.7% of bird species, 7.9% of reptile species, 6% of amphibian species, 12.2% of fish species, and 6% of all flowering plant species. Fully a third of Indian plant species are endemic. India also contains 4 of the world's 34 biodiversity hotspots, or regions that display significant habitat loss in the presence of high endemism. According to official statistics, India's forest cover is 7,13,789 square kilometer, that is 2,75,595 square miles, which is 21.71% of the country's total land area. It can be subdivided further into broad categories of canopy density, or the proportion of the area of a forest covered by its tree canopy. Very dense forest whose canopy density is greater than 70% occupies 3.02% of India's land area. It predominates in the tropical moist forest of the Andaman Islands, the Western Ghats, and Northeast India. Moderately dense forest, whose canopy density is between 40% and 70%, occupies 9.39% of India's land area. It predominates in the temperate coniferous forest of the Himalayas, the moist deciduous sal forest of Eastern India, and the dry deciduous teak forest of Central and Southern India. Open forests, whose canopy density is between 10% and 40%, occupies 9.26% of India's land area. India has 2 natural zones of thorn forest, one in the Deccan Plateau, immediately east of the Western Ghats, and the other in the western part of the Indo-Gangetic Plain, now turned into rich agricultural land by irrigation, its features no longer visible. Among the Indian subcontinent's notable indigenous trees are the astringent Azadirachta indica or neem, which is widely used in rural Indian herbal medicine, and the luxuriant Ficus religiosa or peepal, which is displayed on the ancient seals of Mohenjo-daro, and under which the Buddha is recorded in the Pali Canon to have sought enlightenment. Many Indian species have descended from those of Gondwana, the southern supercontinent from which India separated more than 100 million years ago. India's subsequent collision with Eurasia set off a mass exchange of species. However, volcanism and climatic changes later caused the extinction of many endemic Indian forms. Still later, mammals entered India from Asia through two zoogeographical passes flanking the Himalayas. This had the effect of lowering endemism among India's mammals, which stands at 12.6%, contrasting with 45.8% among reptiles and 55.8% among amphibians. Among endemics are the vulnerable hooded leaf monkey and the threatened bedouin toad of the Western Ghats. India contains 172 IUCN designated threatened animal species or 2.9% of endangered forms. These include the endangered Bengali tiger and the Ganges River dolphin. Critically endangered species include the gharial, a crocodilian, the great Indian bustard, and the Indian white-rumped vulture, which has become nearly extinct by having ingested the carrion of diclofenac treated cattle. Before they were extensively used for agriculture and cleared for human settlement, the thorn forests of Punjab were mingled at intervals with open grasslands that were grazed by large herds of blackbuck preyed on by the Asiatic cheetah. The blackbuck, no longer extant in Punjab, is now severely endangered in India and the cheetah is extinct. The pervasive and ecologically devastating human encroachment of recent decades has critically endangered Indian wildlife. In response, the system of national parks and protected areas, first established in 1935, was expanded substantially. In 1972, India enacted the Wildlife Protection Act and Project Tiger to safeguard crucial wilderness. The Forest Conservation Act was enacted in 1980 and amendments added in 1988. India hosts more than 500 wildlife sanctuaries and 18 biosphere reserves, 4 of which are part of the World Network of Biosphere Reserves. 75 wetlands are registered under the Ramsar Convention. So that's all for now in this episode. Bye bye for now, and in the next episode, the 4th episode, I shall be coming up with politics and government of India. Till then, bye bye. Have a nice day to US and Canadian citizens, and good evening to Europeans, and good night to all the Asians. Namaskar.